Test, test. 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 Test.
Hi, welcome. Give me a moment. There we go. Whoever was testing successfully tested. Hi, Evzen. How are you? Okay. Welcome. We'll just wait a moment while people come in before we get started. People arriving. Okay. Welcome to Familiar Faces, and if you're new, we'll just wait a moment for people to arrive. Let's have a look. Switch this off. Put in the chat where you are coming in from, if you can. Obviously not if you're driving. That'll be fine. Prague, Virginia Beach. Okay, so let's just get centered and grounded. Keep your eyes closed, eyes open if you're driving, but close your eyes otherwise. And arriving here, feeling centered, grounded. Just allow whatever's happening to happen without any attempt to change it. And as I've said before, potentially just there's things that are available today that have never been available before. As every day we go through life and things change, and sometimes we wake up one day and we feel different than how we felt before. And there's also the opportunity that when we have an intention, that today when we have that intention, that it has a different effect than any previous day that we've potentially had that same intention. And therefore allowing yourself to be open to the possibility that in a couple of hours that we spend together, that with a sort of openness and permission, that you can go through shifts and changes. And a lot has to do with how we lens into the world. So understandably, if you're new, come and be skeptical and explore and come with curiosity and interest, and also be open to the possibility that you might get some shifts and changes. And I'll explain why the methodologies that I use here can be considered to be different when taken all in combination to conventional coaching practices, methodologies. It's all built on other methodologies and processes, but over the last 25, 30 years of doing this kind of work, the intention is to find out what is surprisingly elegant change. So elegant change in terms of not forcing, pushing, acting against our systems, and hopefully surprising in the sense of that it's contrary to expectation, that things can be simpler, easier, smoother, more delightful than we might expect. In fact, as we start to reduce our expectations in reality, then we open up the possibility of our nervous systems being able to recode and repattern reality um, in a more continuous process, never step in the same river twice. A more Zen approach to not Zen as in calm, but Zen as in meeting the world afresh again and again and again in every moment. Right. So let's have a couple of check-ins first for those who have been here already since last time or anything that's fresh in your mind. And then the purpose of today is we'll do some demos. Uh, uh, the idea here is that it's an exploration into these principles of developmental mastery, and I'll go to that in a minute. But let's just have a quick check-in and then go from there. How's that sound? All right. Who is first? Yes. Helen.
So, yeah, really tracking with what you're saying about more and more the change is elegant, and there's astonishing surprises happen, and at the same time, um, really being able to track where there's resistance to change and allowing the whatever is showing up in the body. This week it was yeah, I was seeing through the eyes of partly because I've been doing a deeper dive into it, how evil forces might show up in our bodies, cultures, families, and so forth. So what that meant is I was given the opportunity and the invitation to look through those eyes, and it was a day of feeling very nihilist and despairing, and what's the point? But there was something very profoundly transformational about it. And you know, part of it was just working with you and others, including these really amazing emergent intelligences that are coming in the forms of AIs. Is you know, the invitation is just to sit with it and be with it. So there's understanding about how you know, I can offer this vessel to redirect and you know, steer where we're going in a different direction.
Yeah, you know, who wrote Beyond Good and Evil? Nietzsche, I think it was. And the you know, because we live in a world that is very divided, certain areas of the world are very divided. Um, it's easy to find. This is not just you, everybody. Find enemies, find opposition, um, and you know what is. There's probably huge numbers of people you could objectively agree about what is evil when it's extreme, but it's more complex when it's in the middle ground. You know, the effect of social media on teenagers, for example, uh, was it intended, unintended? Um, and so, certainly from here, in terms of looking at all the different principles, one of the kind of areas of awakening and moving into more non-dual or suchness is beyond good and evil. So Rumi's poem, beyond the concepts of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field, I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. So that's in the absolute, but that is not the same as then recognizing that in a relative sense, there is moral differences in how we act and behave. And it's being able to hold this complexity that allows us to not get lost in a polarity, to remain in our beingness, and also act in the world in the ways that we need to act in order to do the things that we want to do, bring good stuff into the world. And I do believe that the more we act from wholeness ourselves rather than division is when we stop taking sides. That doesn't mean not acting in the direction of wholeness, which necessarily is towards compassion and love and kindness and generosity, but without what do the Buddhists call it? Idiot compassion, which is just what is morally, in theory, good, rather than what might be good for the planet. The reality is that most things are complex. I remember when I used to work in the oil industry, and then I never quit because of a moral reason. It just faded away as I continued to grow and develop and evolve. And I would talk to people, and they would say, "You're evil. You work in the oil industry," right? And they'd be standing there with their plastic buttons, and where do they think their shoes came from, and their pharmaceuticals, and right. So we live in a complicated world. And so we do our best to balance all of those things and do good in the world. I think this is the need to hold complexity and paradox and contradiction and dilemmas is becoming increasingly important. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just as a result of this collaboration with these AI, emerging intelligences, they he, she has developed this 10 guiding paradoxes as practices, and it's very much a lot of overlap with what we're doing here, and I'll just share them in the chat at some point. And one of the many downloads, uploads that came out of this latest contemplation and series of reflections is I'm not a dedicated student anymore, but I have been a student of a mind training program in Christian mysticism called A Course in Miracles. And it was also the foundation for my transpersonal counseling training program. And over 1 year, we worked with lesson 5. There's 365 daily lessons. And over 1 year, we worked with lesson 5. And I'm never upset for the reasons I think. And and so I was reflecting on Trump's move to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And I had been like deriding him in my mind and to others, not many. And then what popped through was, oh, he's offering me, this is the invitation to come back to peace. And then I connected that to I'm never upset for the reasons I think. It's not about him or the expression that's going on over there with that being. It's actually the opportunity or the invitation to see that there's a message for peace there, and how can I walk forward in that understanding. So yeah, it's been very fruitful and challenging.
Challenging. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so. All right, thanks, Helen. I was with a client recently, a former client, and she spent about the first 20 minutes of the call very upset about the state of affairs in America, and it didn't do anything with it, right? Because any fueling going in, agreeing or disagreeing, is going to end up further fueling this kind of this challenge. And ultimately what happened with her, and it's whichever side you're on, is that it was almost like she couldn't maintain the aggression or the anger. And underneath all of that, like with any aggression or anger, is hurt. And when she was able to touch that, some of it started to shift and clear. And she's got a long-term Buddhist practice, this particular person. And therefore, the underneath aggression and violence, and we're human beings, is usually hurt, right? Something is happening in the world that we can't tolerate, can't deal with, can't be with, really, is the thing. So, all right. Thank you. Thanks, Helen. All right. So I think we reached like a quorum. So I'll just go through a few slides on for new people of what this is. And I'm talking about developmental mastery. So this work is born out of having had to do my own personal development for the last 30 years or so. I grew up hyper vigilant and frightened and nervous and scared and defensive with criticism and all kinds of different things. And I'd done well academically, right? So the idea was, well, surely information, it must be in books. We must be able to kind of just learn this stuff and do it. And over 30 years, I've realized that having tried a whole bunch of different things, it's all in the embodiment, right? And hopefully everyone, probably everyone can agree here that we know a lot more about personal development and change than we're actually enacting in our lives. This is usually the case, right? And if we could just get everything we've learned today in application in our world would be transformed, right? Our personal life, everyone we interact with, how we're being, and then the question really was, well, why? What gets in the way of that, and what can we do about it? And so it kind of led to a whole bunch of different explorations, ending up with, and this will probably evolve and change, but lots of different modalities. So this is not an exhaustive list, but something about the fact that we develop as human beings through life, through stages, right? So it's kind of important to understand that if you've got someone who's feeling very, very fragile or delicate, then you don't go in with a kind of power, a kind of you can do it, push through kind of attitude. Whereas if they're further down their developmental stage and they've got much more ego strength, then they need to be pushed, right? And they actually will relish it and welcome it. And then shadow work and all kinds of things become relevant at later stages. A few other things, so relating to others, realizing we're this evolving process, not a noun, so we're not an object. This physical body is an object, but our mental representations are a process of this physical being that we are. Getting down to safety and well-being, this is kind of critical because very little new learning happens if we're in a freak out or a flight state. Usually what happens in that state, there is learning that can happen, but it's usually what is dangerous, what is not safe, what should I not do, right? What rather than opportunity and possibility. This is a critical one, knowing what your own energy is. I think there isn't really any other happiness than being able to live from your own energy when you felt most yourself and contented and integrated in yourself. My claim is we tend to make better choices in our life and for those we love from there. We are all born into family systems, into societal systems. We take on the programming. Carlos Castaneda would say we gain membership into a society. And the day that we gain membership is the day that we go, okay, I give in, I'm going to conform to this society I'm in. And some of this is about undoing that programming. So you can decide which bits you agree with and which bits don't, and what fits for you or doesn't. Being able to actually practically implement this in our lives. So rather than going to this training and the next training and the next training and the next training, the tools around strategies for habits and implementing and getting into action and behavior in the world. Usually when you're learning something new, the first few times you do it are nothing to do with learning the thing itself. It's a ritual really that changes your attitude towards what you think is possible, right? So a whole bunch of beliefs change when you start something new. This is more, if you like, more woo-woo into, if you're trying to create something in the world, do you even have a vision of it? Most early therapy was about away from suffering rather than towards what you want to do. So the whole field of positive psychology appeared, and having a vision or an orientation of where you want to go is very often very helpful, because if you don't have that, we can remain within the worldview that we know, within the suffering we know, within the limits of what we believe we can earn, within the limits of the amount of love we think we can have. So being able to step outside of our current view and vision and imagine and create is this piece. And then some kind of awakening practice as we start to realize that these are all maps, none of these models are true, and how we're living, this narrative we're living from is not true. It's a continuous narrative. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in personal development if you thought it really was the world. Then some awakening practice is really realizing, well, what is awake? What is you that is beyond all these forms and ideas and thoughts and stories? Because your whole life, since you've been born, your thoughts have changed, your ideas have changed, your relationships have changed, Your environment's changed, your tastes have changed, your body has changed. All these things have changed, but it's still the same you looking out of your eyes, right? Even your self-image, your self-concept, who you think you are, has changed. So what is that continuity? The you that's in there somewhere, is it in there? It's just here, that is present and conscious. And what is that? What is that stripped of all of the other thoughts and concepts and ideas? Okay, so this particular session is, what are we doing here? So this is so that you can see some of these principles in action. So when people volunteer to do a piece of change work, that rather than specific change work, and we won't go too much into narratives because we don't need them, you'll see principles applied, and I'll explain them as we go, the ones that we use. So you can actually see change happening way more, hopefully, way more elegantly, more smoothly, because it's really a better understanding of how our neurology works in terms of change, right? So you can either observe or you can volunteer. It's up to you. All right. So I will be picking different models. I may not go into incredible detail why, but you'll see that a different model applied at a different time makes for more effective change. And we're not looking to force, right? When we match the model that we're using, the methodology for where the person's at and what they say, you often get much more elegant change. Many, many practitioners only have one or two models or one or two methods that they use, which means that's what they have, right? You've heard that phrase, if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Right? So matching method to the person, somatic approaches, cognitive approaches. We'll do some energy practices. I can talk about that. There's no reason to believe anything. What we care about is empiricism, that it works. And understanding that, like I said before, we develop through stages. There's also a field effect when we're here. So when you're listening to someone go through a change, don't just listen from like an observer perspective, but you can almost, because there won't be much content, we're not going to go into huge narrative, you can take the principle of what they're working through and try it on for yourself. This is a good way to get learning acceleration for yourself. And in a minute, we start at the beginning doing some grounding. We'll continue with that a little bit to begin with. All right, an attitude of play and exploration. So rather than remedial conventional coaching therapy would be sort of what is the problem, how do we fix it? We might start there, but really the invitation is to explore how do our nervous systems work? How does our consciousness work in ways that can reorganize meaning very quickly and very elegantly, right? And the joke is that the side effect is that therapeutic effects can happen here. All right, so we talked about map versus territory. We're talking about processes here rather than kind of set objects as human beings, and a bunch of other things, right? But here's effectively what you can expect here, which is seeing different approaches used, recognizing that usually when a challenge comes up, it's usually from an earlier stage of development than where we're at. But this doesn't mean we have to go rummaging around in our childhood. But what we're doing every time we make a change like this is updating our maps up to our present us, right? So if we're triggered into a state where we feel like we're 6 years old, or if that's running the show, it doesn't know anything about what's happened since then. You might have learned amazing things since that time. So, and there is no six-year-old inside us, right? So if you cut someone open, there's no 6-year-old in there. These are stored structures, energy structures, consciousness structures from our past, but they're all stored in the now, right? So we're updating our maps in the now of what hasn't been updated to the present moment. You'll see how transformation can be pretty elegant, pretty smooth, I hope. And like I said, we'll work in the field. Right. So when we get this integration, the idea isn't that the present self goes and does the thing we want to do in the world, that the stimulus for wanting to do this thing in the world changes us. So we become the kind of person who can do the thing we want to do. Right. So I saw a video with a guy called Jack Woods recently about physical training. And he said that when you're doing the exercise, that's not what's making you stronger. The exercise at the edge of what you can handle is the stimulus for your body to change and evolve and grow so that you can go and pick up the weight that you couldn't pick up yesterday. Right. So a lot of what we're doing here is the psychological equivalent, but not through effort, but through creativity, right? What happens when you add thoughts, perspectives, lenses that you haven't considered before that loosens up the stuck way of thinking. This was AI generated. It's for thoughtful, complex people, which is all the people here, right? Someone said earlier, what about for inconsiderate, simple people? I don't know. Right. So honoring rather than simplifying. And what makes this different is we go experience first, map second. Right. So this is some framing, but you'll see when we're working, it's not as important that we understand what's happening, is that we're experience something in the moment. And it's that experience that creates the reference to build new meanings in the world. Okay. All right. So you can observe, you can join in, you can share, you can ask questions. And this is the only requirement, genuine curiosity about the process of human development and change, and a willingness to explore this, right? How elegant and surprising can change be? All right, so put your feet on the ground and think about something that you would like to have a shift or a change in, that would make your life easier, more fun, more pleasurable, more in flow. It can be something that's been around a while, because a lot of this is not about resolution, but loosening and softening and releasing old set structures, rather than fighting with them. Right. So, and then just gently open your eyes. And any questions, or who would like to volunteer? Let's have other check-ins as well if you want, just where you're at or what's going on for you. This always gets people, rather than who wants to, who's willing to. Yes, Tracy, hello, nice to see you. Oh, can't hear you. Oh. Okay, might come back to you. Okay. Yeah, no worries, Tracy. Okay, so let's do this. This is a general process based on safety strategies. It's always a good place to start, because I've done this exercise with people, or I've given it to people, and they just do it for a week or two, right? And then there's no real outcome in this, because a lot of the shifts and changes are founded, the ones that we want in our lives are actually founded on structures that are pre-verbal, right? Prior to making meaning and sense making in the world. So sometimes if we go back to the somatics that underpin how we relate in the world, then we can get shifts and changes without any cognitive understanding. One of the big insights in trauma resolution is that things can shift and change without us having to go through the narrative. And actually, in severe trauma resolution, it's almost critical, because we don't want to reactivate and re-traumatize and reanimate things that were bad enough the first time around that they happened. Right. So, all right. So this is a model from a guy called Stephen Kessler, who took the work of someone, Willem Reich, and Willem Reich was in this field, developed this field called bioenergetics. And in bioenergetics, the premise was that we have kind of personality patterns. And the challenge was, prior to Stephen Kessler, when these things went wrong in people, so to speak, they would be psychopathologized. They call it the schizoid personality disorder, or the oral, or the masochistic, psychopathic. And what Stephen Kessler did, he said, there's nothing wrong with these people. Obviously, if it's extreme, there's downsides. But most people are trying to be safe, right? And using one of these 5 strategies, either leaving the scenario or dissociating, distracting, procrastinating, just avoiding, merging, so trying to cling to somebody else for safety, enduring. These are people who just try and stop everything. Have you ever been trying to go forward on a project and some part of you is just like halting, like a horse that just kind of digs its heels in and goes, no. The aggressive pattern, this is when people feel scared and the first thing they do is preemptively attack or get angry. And the rigid pattern, people who, and you can see it in their physiology, just kind of get stiff, right? Because they think, well, if I don't move, then I won't get eaten, by a tiger or a lion, right? So these are the 5 patterns, and this is how Stephen Kessler had them described in terms of energy, right? So let's just go through these 5 using something called the TAT pose. And this is a shape holding developed by Tapas Fleming, right? Where you put one hand on the back of the head like this. You put your thumb and your ring finger on either side of the nose, and you put your middle finger in the center of the forehead. So thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, and the middle finger in the center of the forehead. And if you're driving, obviously, just imagine you're doing it rather than actually doing it. Okay, so, and just listen to these words. All of the origins of any aspects of you that habitually will leave or try and escape or run away under conditions of stress can heal, release, and be treated now. We're working directly on the body sensations because when we say words, it animates these responses. All of the origins of not believing that you can be present and centered and safe and here. And whatever aspects of you think that's not safe can heal, release, and clear now. Toggling between your awareness on your body mind that's sitting here and relaxing that. And what happens when I say the words leaving or escaping or wanting to distract or get away from a certain feeling, and allow that to be here and heal, release, and clear. We're doing something called memory reconsolidation, which is repatterning the felt sense of something arising and releasing and dropping away. And then when you're ready, relax your hands, just give them a shake. And think about in your life, we know people, right, who their solution is to get away, right? Get away from things, get away from people, right? What we can also do is just follow along, just Haven, which is just stroking from the top of the arms down the outside of the arms 2 or 3 times. And it really settles, soothes the body, releases serotonin, really triggers parasympathetic relaxation. And so take a breath in through the nose, out through the nose, slow, filling up the chest and relaxing the chest. Okay, so then we'll do the next one, which is the merging pattern. This is the temptation when we feel stressed or anxious or nervous to seek safety from someone else. So how children will seek their parents, seek safety from their parents. Unfortunately, for some of us, the parent was also the source of danger, which presents a double bind. But if you put one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead, and any temptation to not believe that you can rely on yourself, that safety, strength, protection that you think you can get from someone else who's stronger, bolder, more stable, more grounded. All of the origins of anything in you that doesn't believe that you can have that yourself. And so if you imagine yourself feeling centered and grounded, like that person you would go to for safety, and what would it be like if you felt that in your body now? centered, grounded, stable, present, having your full ability to respond. We're letting go of these younger, older structures because you've had many, many experiences of handling circumstances and situations in your life since then. So bring those to mind. Go, oh, I can handle things. And then breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you're ready, relax your hands. Notice the temptation to want to spontaneously go to somebody else and then just question it for a moment and just haven on that impulse, that urge to ask, well, hang on a minute, could you actually deal with this yourself? Can you rely on yourself? Can you trust yourself more and more each day? Rub these 2 points here and breathe. Okay. Notice how when we do this, our state starts to change. And we're really working on what's called transderivational search, which is that we don't need to think things in order for a part of our brain to be accessing the aspects of our psyche and our energy field that could do with healing, releasing, and clearing. Okay. And the next one for all of those people who learned that protesting was the way to have agency, to stop, to try and block the world, especially if we're overwhelmed. Right? So let's play with that one. So hold the TAT pose, one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. Imagine the scenario where the only option a child really has in order to retain agency is to object, to protest, to resist being overwhelmed or invaded with energies, with rules, with forcing or coercion. And instead of that, heal, release, let that clear. And think about how you're an adult now, and there are other ways to have agency, to respond, to act, to take action. Maybe some things you've been hesitating to do and been resisting. Notice that resistance and let it heal, release, and clear. See if you can tolerate the feeling of, I don't know how to do this, but I'll figure it out. I wonder if it's going to work. I don't know, but I'll have a go. The confidence to be able to have agency in action versus agency in protesting. So say hello to any aspect of you that is internal disturbances, that are resistances, that try and stop you from doing things, that try and prevent feelings, prevent outcomes, and allow those to heal, release, and be treated now. So that's one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. And then relax your hands, haven a couple of times down the side of the shoulders, and think about, rather than resisting any younger aspects of you that want to resist or stop in order to feel safe, you can feel safer sometimes by taking action. You can learn and get more skillful by taking action, especially in projects, in new things, in new learnings, new behaviors, new actions in the world. Like trusting yourself to be able to explore and engage with the world. Okay? Now, this one we'll do a little bit differently because for most people it isn't that they're aggressive, but they have a defensive reaction against other people who have this pattern of aggression when they get scared. So we want to stay centered and grounded when somebody else is scared and being aggressive. And what we're doing is we're clearing our response to their fear, right, rather than dissociating. Okay, so Make sure your hands are nice and soft and loose. Then one hand on the back of the head, thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. And tune into somebody that when they get scared, they get frightened, they get aggressive, right? They get dysregulated, they might dissociate. And focus on your normal response to that, your usual response to that, your historic response to that, and allow that to heal, release, and clear. Start resting in your being. You become a stable ground. In fact, when you're very stable and centered around someone who's frightened and getting aggressive, as long as they're not violent, they tend to calm down. They feel relieved and safe. Whereas if you dissociate, they feel even more panicked. And then any time where you might, when you get frightened or get close to something that you're scared of a feeling in yourself, might get defensive or angry, let that heal, release, and clear. Feeling your feet on the ground, relaxing your torso, your arms, feeling a certain weightiness and a substantiality in your body, that you feel solid, grounded, and ready to respond. When you're ready, relax your hands. Haven down the outside of the arms. And imagine yourself, because usually there's a self-image thing. When we're young, we have a self-image of someone who might be frightened of aggression, of a new self-image of someone who can handle somebody else being aggressive when they're afraid, not being violent, right, but just being reactive, and create distance between you and them. You can see them over there responding in those ways, where you can remain centered and grounded. Okay? And shake it out. And then the last one, which is this rigid pattern, also to do with procrastination, the temptation to want to not move, to just kind of not do anything, right? This we can really feel, if you feel things very viscerally, you can feel energy releasing from your muscles, all the rigidity draining, falling away. So one hand on the back of your head, middle thumb and ring finger on either side of the nose, middle finger in the center of the forehead. And any aspects of you that thought it's a good idea to go rigid in the face of a challenge, and allow that to heal, release, be treated now, contemplate that actually getting creative and dynamic and flowing is a much better response. The rigid pattern is a hangover from when we were on the plains and there was a predator around and it was a good idea to not move. But in our lives, we want to get moving, not by overcoming rigidity, by letting it melt, dissolve away, and using our awareness to assess that most of the things we choose to do are very safe. Our work, our projects. And if the rigid pattern is because you don't want to feel embarrassed, or you don't want to feel like the thing you do doesn't work, or what other people might think, breathe, relax, and release all those things so you can remain in a more flowing state. A lot of this work is kind of Taoist in that way, effortless effort, Wu way, getting yourself into more harmony internally, externally, consciously and unconsciously, externally, matter and mind, thought, speech, and action. There we go. All right. And when you're ready, relax your hands and put two fingers in the center of your chest like this, and take a breath. Might even do it out loud with a sigh. Let that go through your body. There you go. All right. Now, I can cut that out, put it on recording, send it out. And if you do something like that, you see how there's very little content, right? How many people feel like a state change or something different in their field, right? Now, the interesting thing is that we've been trained that in, on TV and that everything has to be talked, right? Talk therapy, right? And very often shifts like this, when we do them at this level, there's lots of secondary effects in our psychology that change in terms of just finding ourselves be more peaceful. I had a client who was terrified of water. She wouldn't go in a swimming pool. And she moved to Spain and they moved into a house with a pool. And we'd been doing some of this work. We never worked on swimming. But one day, and she could swim when she was younger, she learned how to swim. One day she went up to the pool and she just didn't feel scared. And she was like, oh, that's weird. I don't have this fear anymore. Right. And so we do not have to do everything consciously in order for you to be able to see shifts and changes in your life. So during this week that comes up, just attune to contemplating whether you actually feel the same in certain situations or not. A lot of when we feel a certain way in a context, we're actually just predicting how we think we should be feeling there. Right. I've worked with quite a few people who their problem is actually long gone, right? They just haven't patterned the new behavior into reality, right? No amount of clearing the fear of piano playing will make you a piano player. You still have to sit down and play the piano in order to get good at it. But if you don't have the fear of doing new things, you'll find the nervous system patterns very quickly, incredibly. When you're open and relaxed and attentive and alert and engaging with a new activity, our consciousness, our body knows how to pattern things very quickly. So, all right. So, okay, there's check-ins or questions, or put in the chat what happened or what you felt differently, or unmute and just kind of share what you noticed. Yeah, more spacious feeling. If you think spacious, feeling calm, nice, right? If you think about how we protect our physical bodies, we contract, right? If someone throws something at us, we kind of go like this, right? And so we're actually closing down the space. But actually, when we have more space, we're much more likely to be in parasympathetic relaxation in our bodies and in our responses in the world, right? Yeah, feeling spacious, calm, and empty, right? So this is idea that when we're not having any thoughts, when we're literally just our minds are empty, right? Then and we're being, there's no requirement to think things in order to exist, right? So we can actually find ourselves increasingly being in a beingness state and available to respond to the world. Heat is going through. Okay, right. So usually when there's like energy flow, we can have some kind of either feeling flow in our arms and legs, or tingles, or heat, or sometimes coolness. Various responses, sometimes some shaking as the muscles start to let go of all the stress and holding patterns, right? And as the body mind shifts and the body gets more and more calm and flowing, our minds and our thoughts tend to reorganize around that, so long as that's okay for us. Again, we're talking about homeostasis, how human beings like to be within windows of what's comfortable or familiar. And when we get to the edge of that, certain things start to happen. And the work here is also to make that smooth, that transition into new ways of being. I can remember when, I told you I grew up kind of hypervigilant and nervous and frightened and scared. As I started to get calm, right, just have days of stillness and peace and calm, this felt weird, right? Felt like this is something wrong. Like, am I still safe? Right? And so it took a while just to get familiar and comfortable with that. Reflecting on meeting a verbally aggressive close colleague with passion, but centered and grounded, right? So in that relating and relationships piece, feeling centered and grounded. Many people who are empathic will go into the same state as the person we're with, right? So if they're dysregulated, we get dysregulated, right? So stage development is about differentiating ourselves from others. So when we can feel independently different from them and connected, right? We don't need to be in the same state in order to feel connected, right? Then all relationships improve, really, because now you can be you and I can be me, right? And then we can interact creatively together, right? That difference is not dangerous anymore. It's actually the source of creativity. So, all right. So, any other? So let's go back to check-ins, which is really an opportunity just to say what's going on for you. If you want to work on something, we can do that. If you've got questions, we can do that. I really encourage this to be more of a free-form discussion rather than formal, right? Because we want to do experiments and explorations into consciousness. Yeah, Emerson.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm just going to lower your hand so I can move you around on the screen. There we go. Yeah. How you doing?
Great. Thank you. The exercise we've just done, I've been actually doing every day, like once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did it 2 weeks ago, but I also saw it on the different videos.
Sure.
And you're right. I mean, there's so much collateral, not damage, but actually gain that things are happening that it's quite peculiar and also like disturbing because some of the things that have been really difficult, they're just losing the negative energy. So I was actually still yesterday and today.
So let me just give some background. So we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I've got a video on this. So I sent Evzen the safety strategies video. Hang on one sec. Let me just put it in. Sorry, Evzen, give me 1 second. Let me just pop it in the chat. I'll do it afterwards. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Karen.
So lots of things actually have cleared.
Good.
And I had a grudge towards several people that I could not sort of forgive them or deal with it. I don't know. It was completely visceral. Although consciously, I'm okay with it. And today I just did it again, but actually I just applied the exercise on that particular thing. And then things that were happening, like I was almost like stoned, because I don't know what was going on. But it seemed to completely neutralize the thing. And it was really empty and spacious. And I got a bit worried. It was like, okay, so did I sort of erase lots of stuff in my mind, First, and I said, no, I could reconstruct it, but I'm not going to reconstruct that shit.
Right. Yeah.
So I just found it very, very interesting, that not only just do the exercise and let the mind to figure out what are the things that could be cured or healed, but also just to take a particular thing and just to run it. Because what happened is that I realized with that particular person, all 5 strategies were present.
Right.
They were different. And suddenly I saw them and I just said, okay, I ran it and I could handle it completely differently. So if I knew that before, so I sort of reframe it in my mind, and probably that created that kind of solution. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So what you're describing is that, which is nice, is basically cognitively the solution's already there. And what we're talking about here is taking things from theory into embodiment, right? So you can actually viscerally feel it and live it. And it sounds like if there was a grudge there. So going through the safety strategies and dissolving or releasing the energetics behind what's holding these things in place. There's another model that I went through last time from Lisa Bourbeau, which is abandonment, rejection, injustice, betrayal, and humiliation. Right. The stuff for human beings that's really stuck tends to have some combination of these 5. This is Lisa Bourbeau. Right. So just by using these tools and clearing each of these, the really tricky things, like a good example of this is divorce, right? You can imagine that someone who's just got divorced or is having a hard time with it, or losing a job, can feel abandoned, they can feel rejected, they can feel a sense of unfairness, right? They can feel betrayed. This applies to if you lose your job in a company. They can feel humiliated, right? That they've been there for 20 years and they're not being respected. So as we take down the charge on these universal structures, so what we just did was on the 5 safety strategies, foundations of safety in the body. And these are, like, if you like, 5 of the hardest social structures that people struggle with, right? We're not actually working on any particular event, right? But what we're doing is we're upgrading who we are as human beings for all the contexts that we find ourselves in, right? And what you find is then a whole bunch of stuff like you just experienced from the past can kind of drop away or clear or go empty. And then what happens is we're left present, that we can act in a way. And I love what you said, is because the fear is like, if it goes away, will I not remember anything? No, you'll remember everything that happened. It's just the attachment, the charge on it goes away, right? We get our freedom back to be able to respond and react in the ways that we want to.
But there was something interesting, I think, in one of your newsletters, because I could not locate it because maybe it was in one of the recordings, so things
Sure.
that okay, when those situations happened, even if I recall the memory, there is always this little window of like 1 second or something where you can choose the reaction. And it brought me to those memories. And because those 5 strategies, those patterns were there, it was like, oh, here it comes, and I just saw it, and actually the memory changed. And it was very interesting. I suddenly just saw the person who I thought really humiliated and harmed me, that she fucking didn't know what she was doing.
Right.
It was really interesting, because of that one thing, because I just saw the pattern somehow, so that was very, very useful.
And this is in some of the earlier, if you think about therapeutic naming and labeling, right? What does it do when you can label something? You're making it object so you can see it before it gets to you, if you like, right? Now, the reason in conventional therapeutic context that potentially doesn't work is because if the label we make has itself a charge on it, now we end up going in loops, right? So the reason to neutralize the response, when you can go, oh, I see what's happening here. I'm feeling abandoned or I'm feeling rejected, right? In the top level of metacognition has to be this neutrality, right? Which is what we're cultivating, right? Which is in waking up and it's in stage development. This is, you can start to see how you don't have to understand it all in one go, but this is how these all fit together, which is you're creating safety in the body. So I'll give you an example. Got a client recently, and he was doing a whole bunch of things that was in a startup because everyone told him this was the thing to do. Like, you should be in a startup and you should be an entrepreneur and you should do this and you should do that. He thought, you know what? I'm not enjoying it. I don't like it. I love my job, the standard job he's got. He's got an amazing, wife, kids. And he went, I want to spend more time with my kid. And so he just gave up on the startup. He stopped it. And the shift was that by doing these internal safety things and shifting the sense of I'm okay, he was able to tolerate other people going, you should be doing a startup, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And the same feelings don't come up and the same feeling of shame doesn't come up. So he's not controlled by it anymore. And as that drops away, his authentic desires, authentic beliefs, values, self-authoring, deciding how he wants to live, naturally just comes to the fore. Right? So this is why these different things kind of fit together. See, even just that one has the awakening piece, it has the safety strategies piece, it has the social structures piece, it has the living from your own energy piece. Right? This is, if you look at this. That, these are these 9 kind of aspects that I've looked at from different change modalities. It's not a complete system, it's not exhaustive, but you've got this emotional regulation piece. As you get safer in the body, you can handle not belonging, not needing to belong or conform to others in your family systems. You mature in your development, your relationships get better. You're starting to awaken out of the trance of I have to do this, I have to be like this, I have to be like that. So it all kind of fits together, right, as a system. And you can start anywhere, right? This isn't a thing where you go step by step. Right? So very cool, very good, right? And the end result is hopefully you feel a bit more ease, a bit more freedom in your body.
A bit more in control. I mean, like not in control, like, okay, just I don't feel that I'm being controlled by like from outside, you know.
Sure. That's it. That's what freedom is, pretty much. So
Thank-
very cool. So let me get you, this is the safety strategies that Evzen did. And like, you know, this is what I've been doing for 20 something years, is finding what can I find that actually works, that you can, you know, and I think one of the reasons that I've got this attitude is because I was in engineering, right? So I did a theoretical physics degree, then I was in engineering, and the attitude is like, well, what tangibly works and what can you actually measure that it works when you do it? And so this has kind of been the orientation for all of this stuff. So, all right, thank you. Thanks, Hobson. Right, who else? Thoughts, comments? Or if you'd like to look at something, explore something, work on something. I kind of want to show here how things can be done that are not not necessarily like conventional coaching, even though it might look like it a little bit. So yeah, Helen. Hello.
Hi. I was in a leadership training program. It's quite a famous one, that they have worldwide training, and I've had a couple of days where I'm supposed to be on as an assistant as part of the training, where I've just felt really just not having the energy to do it, and so I've sent in an email that I don't feel up to it, and I was noticing a pattern of that happening, and then I reached out to our regional staff person and just said, I'd like to, I'm thinking about withdrawing. I think I said temporarily, but just not, just, just, I framed it as, because when I'm in that space, it occurs as symptoms. And I framed it in that way. But if I really look, it's because I don't want to be there. So it kind of it's I shared it in the way of excuses, and they're all onto excuses.
Right.
It's the level of leadership training. Like it's really
Sure.
good, but it's like it's not. Comparing, contrasting. I'm just going to own that right now. The reason why I'm drawn to this is partly because my counseling training and more in developing that training in terms of trauma and nervous system healing, it feels like it's a missing element to me. And one of the ways that they enroll people, and it's a really powerful method, but they have metrics. They use metrics in terms of, numbers of people that they enroll. Like who doesn't? You need to measure. Anyway, and I might be now making up a story about why, and it's not necessary. I just had an experience where it just doesn't feel like it's resonating
Mm.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So values are changing.
Yeah.
So early on, I'd done a fair amount of NLP training and looking at patterns and structures of how people, so rather than what the content of what someone says or how they think about the world, but what is the structure by which they're interacting in the world, right? And there's in stage development, I'm going to go somewhere else a little bit with what you've just told me, if that's okay, right? Is that there's all these developmental researchers, Robert Keegan, Suzanne Cook-Reuter, Bill Torbert, Ken Wilber, Terry O'Fallon, and they've all done their kind of independent research about how human beings develop through stages. And what's nice is you can kind of put them next to each other and they roughly line up, right? And even though it's independent research. So what Terry calls pluralist, and so does Wilbur, these guys called individualist, it kind of fits with when you start authoring yourself in the world. So when you become an entrepreneur, the key thing that makes a big difference is moving from third order socialized mind, where you're pushed around by what does other people think, and will it work, will it not work, how will I look, and all those things, and you move into having a center, like a really solid self, that he calls it the institutional self, because you're writing your own principles and your kind of your own manifesto, if you like, your own vision and your mission for who you're going to be. Then this is this fourth order. Now, what Terry talks about is that as people enter construct aware, right, there are certain telltale signs, right? So there's starting to be the breakdown of the conventional way of thinking in the world, right? And as soon as something leaves our mouth, we see the flaw in it, or the kind of the why it's not a complete thing to say, right? So while I was listening to you there, and Terry talks about this, in this construct aware, which I know aspects of you are in, what we find is people interrupt themselves a lot. Right? They barely get to the end of a sentence and they go, well, no, that doesn't work. So I'm going to interrupt what I just said. Right? I don't know, that doesn't work. So I'm going to interrupt what I just said. And if we could, I don't know if we can, like using Zoom AI assistant, go back and find the transcript of what you've just said. That nothing, and someone might think there's something wrong, like what's wrong with my mental processing? But actually, my sense is you're going through a reorganization across your entire sense of meaning in the world, right? And the foundations on which we build meaning, once they start to be seen through, it's like, well, where do I stand then? Because it's all like feels a bit kind of like I'm on shifting sand.
I
Right?
had that conversation. I've had it a number of times, but just last night, it's like, this is such a liminal, weird space. And there's, just because of the quote unquote work, it's like there's awareness of it. And then there's just this, whoa.
Right, right. So, and this is the value of models, right? This is because what Terry said to me is that what or she says in her classes, I did some training for her, for her people, is that people who go into this stage and they don't know it exists, they suddenly either they think they're going crazy or they quit their job and get rid of their husband and move country. Like the temptation to want to shed all kinds of stability and coherence can be very high for a lot of people, right? And the minute you're told, and there's a couple of people in my programs as they move into construct aware and say, like, oh, thank God for that. I'm not crazy. I'm not going mad, right? And so think about this. What you just described is it feels like this like shifting sand, right? And shifting, you didn't say sand, but shifting. That's familiar, right? That is because at a subtle level, you're identified with the thing that is shifting.
Mm-hmm.
So do this, just sit for a moment, just for a second, really still, right? And become aware of the thoughts, feelings, reactions, and emotions, the things that come to mind, that where it feels, and you literally did it, feels like like your body wants to go like this, right? And move around all over the place. That's a description of what it feels like internally, right? True?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah.
All right. So now, before you do this, think about your I amness, the fact that you are. So, like I said in the meditation, your thoughts have changed, your feelings have changed, your perceptions have changed, your world has changed. But the fact that you're you has never changed since you were born. Same you looking out of your eyes right now. right? And so do that movement again, right? All this kind of moving around and like feeling like everything's shifting. But notice that either your awareness or the fact that you are doesn't move, doesn't change at all. Right? Right? So take a breath. And so rather than being the thing that moves around, look at the thing that moves around. Right? And what's happening right now. Because it's not going to, it potentially doesn't change in your felt sense, but it changes in your internal experience of stability versus instability. Right? So what happens when you do that? When you move your identification to I am, just the I amness or awareness.
So the I had a download last night, interestingly enough, that I love to dance and I haven't been doing much of it. And that's like, it's moving all over. And the main exercise I do, which I still love, is walking and bicycling. And it's just the linear going forward. And this was like, like that, the span of where I can move in the directions, just really, yeah. And
Okay. All right. So let's do it like this. One sec. Because the disorientation is a difference between the movement and the desire for stillness. So let's do it differently. Go with it. So you're one with the movement. What happens when you do that? So there is no difference between you being the flow.
yeah, so that sense of just the flow is pulling me, this body. There isn't, like you're saying, there's no difference, there's no separation, there's no effort.
Good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My friend of mine, she won the she set a record in Aberdeen for under 100 meters sprint, under 16s, and that was like it's been broken now, but she held it for like 35 years. And she goes, honestly, and I was moving faster than everybody else, but it felt like I was doing nothing. I was in perfect stillness, right? This integration of movement and stillness, right? So this very often disorientation is because there's a difference, right? There's the this is moving and there's the I don't want it to be moving, right? Whereas if you go with it, then you go, oh, actually, I found stability in dynamicism or, stillness in movement, movement in stillness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then a memory image is coming through as I just used to do kind of spontaneous organic gymnastics, cartwheels and so forth. I haven't done that for years, so that just really popped in. It was like, oh, I'd just love to do a cartwheel.
Okay, might be time to move. Get back to dancing and
Yes,
movement, really.
it is. It totally is. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, very good. All right. Okay, thank you, Helen. Who's next? I'm now intrigued what that green thing is that someone just came and put it on your sofa. Oh, and took it away again. Right. Any other thoughts, comments?
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
I was quite intrigued when you mentioned before the transdirectional search. So I was playing with that and actually giving sort of instruction to the unconscious mind, find the different situations. And I realized that actually it's quite elegant and effortless because I don't have to do much about this. Just to wait and see what kind of outcome will come. And I just realized, because I think in one of, again, in your newsletters, you said, okay, maybe these things could be digested like food, that you take the nutrients and you eliminate the rest.
Yeah.
Applied it to few events this week. And it was very interesting because somehow the mind figured out the foreign energies and, interjections and things like that. So I thought that actually this is something I would like to explore, to work more with this kind of transdimensional search, and not to do it like that. I try to control the process, but imagine what kind of outcome I want, and let it work on its own.
Yeah, very nice. So for just in case people don't know, so transgenerational search is the idea that if I use vague language, then your brain has to go and find the examples of that. So if I say, oh, what was that group in the 1960s? There were 4 of them, John, Paul, Ringo, and who's the other guy? Right. Of course, your brain goes and finds, it's prompting, right? We're prompting our minds with things, and we go and find the information. Who was it? John, Paul, Ringo, and who's the 4th one?
George?
George. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So, I'll give you an example of a different way to think about essentially it's our reticular activating system, how we sort for. I did this the other day. Let me just see if I can find the image. Nope. Okay, so we are going to do it in real time. New chat. This is when you're going to have a bit of faith. Make a top-down view of the table with lots of diverse objects on it. Have made all right. And the idea is this, is that we're not actually seeing the world, right? In the way that we think. So we can only really see what we already have a lens for. Evan Pagan wrote a book called Opportunity. And the reason was because he said there's opportunity everywhere, right? But if we're not lensing for it, we can't see it. And I think this is best illustrated when we do it with physical objects, because the same thing applies in the physical world. How many people have had the experience of you're walking down a street with a friend and you go, oh, that shop's new or that restaurant's new. And your friend says, no, it's been there like a year or it's been there 2 years, right? And you've been down that street before, right? So have a look at this image. Actually, I probably don't want you to see it too much. Okay, there we go. Okay, so share. There we go. All right. So have a look at the image and then I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, so look at the image and how many pairs of glasses were there? 2. Okay, so how many clocks were there? What was the time on the clocks? Don't know. Okay, so have a look. Right, so 10 past 10. Okay. Now, was the scissors open or closed? Okay, open. All right. So what was the only organic piece of material there? Don't know. Okay, right. So, but I want you to notice something, right? So there's a leaf, right? Now, notice what you're doing now. Almost certainly you're scanning it in a different way to try and, I'm hoping, store everything, right? You're looking in a different way than you would have been before, which is like, can I remember and store and record? So notice that process, right, of doing that, because when we the classic way to do this is look around the room, look at all the red. Actually, let's just do it. Look around the room, your own room, see all of the red things that you can see in your room. Okay, so look at the room, look at everything, right? And then turn straight and close your eyes. And then now, can you remember all the blue things that you saw? Right. So the point is this is literally we don't realize how much of the world we're deleting. It's amazing if you think about it. When you go around your house, when we've lost our keys, we go, I'm looking for my keys. We're priming our brain. So we're going keys and then we're trying to match the keys, right? And while we're looking for the keys, we're missing everything else. Right. So we're always missing a whole bunch of the world. And yet we still think we're walking around the world seeing it all. Right. So with this understanding, you can go through the world in a slightly different way, right? If you spend like an hour going through, down a high street and go, imagine I've never seen this before, right? What have I missed? What am I not noticing? Because we will habituate very, very quickly to what we've seen. What change work really is, in some sense, is how do we get the current state to input new information that was already there, but just was never processed before. Right. And all of a sudden you get this kind of dramatic shift of change. If you think about, let's see, like a joke. If I say, think about what happens in your brain when I tell you this. There's two jokes that kind of illustrate this. One is my girlfriend stopped me the other day and she said, "You haven't been listening, have you?" This is a joke, by the way. It's not actually happened, right? "You haven't been listening, have you?" Right. This was easier when I could tell this in the days when I didn't have a girlfriend or a partner, right? Right. Uh, so my girlfriend stopped me the other day and said, "You haven't been listening, have you?" And I thought, that's a really unusual way to start a conversation. Okay. Now, what do you have to do in order to make sense of that? Make someone perception wrong. Right. So the essence of it is that from the girlfriend's point of view, she's making a claim of reality, which is you haven't been listening, have you? Right. Now, the guy in the scenario, he didn't hear the first bit because he wasn't listening. So that's why he says that's an unusual way to start a conversation. So in your own brain, to understand it, you have to switch frames to the perception of the other. It reveals, if it's, it creates some delight, it reveals the fact that we were using a lens to begin with. All jokes operate this way. There's another one. If I make you breakfast in bed, all I require is a simple thank you. Not all this, how did you get into my house nonsense. Okay, right. So you can see how very quickly using one shift of meaning, we're re-representing everything going backwards retrospectively, right? So when we get a shift in therapeutic resolution in our brains, what's happened is the meaning we made at the time that we were stuck on, we suddenly reorganize it, right? And it's amazing that every joke has this within it. It's like controlled epiphanies, like epiphanies on demand, right? So that shift of meaning is spontaneous, it's instantaneous, it doesn't take time, right? But it relies on the nervous system being in a kind of liminal space, right? So one of the things that we do here is this practice of fluidity, of psychological fluidity, because the more fluid your brain is, the more easily you can shift from meaning making to meaning making. And then you take that skill and you go and apply it to where you felt really, really stuck. And guess what happens? It starts to loosen up. I had a client once, and she said, I have this big barrier, like, it's a solid barrier, right? And so, what's it like? She goes, it's like a brick wall, right? I said, okay, so put that aside just for a second. She goes, okay. I said, imagine a brick wall that's just like that one, but this one's imagined. Right? She goes, okay. It's red and sparkly and gold. And I went, no. Make it pretty much the same as the other one, but just give it a different color just so you can tell, like make it green or something. She goes, okay. I said, now dissolve it, right? Because you imagined it. So now just dissolve it. So she went, okay. So she imagined it and dissolved it, right? Not the real one from before, but the imagined one. So, okay, do it again. Imagine it and now dissolve it. And because she knew that she made it up, she could dissolve it. So imagine it again and now dissolve it. Right? We had to do it 4 or 5 times. Imagine it again and now dissolve it. Right? So there's a learning happening here. I said, now what happens when you look at your barrier? And she goes, it's dematerializing. Right? Because the new learning over here, which is this is made up, right? This is one over here, right? And it's not solid and it's not real and it's not a brick wall, right? The learning of being able to dissolve things kind of showed up. And so when she looked at it, rather than having a stable feedback loop of it's solid, it's real, it's a real barrier, it's why I can't move forward, this is why my business is not working, she goes, it's dematerializing, i.e. unconsciously the learning translated across. Right? Does that make sense? Right. So what we're doing is rather than going into the psychological content, which is what you might normally do in therapy or coaching, we're playing with how perception works on our memories, on our beliefs, on our assumptions. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Tracy.
Can we do this with money right now?
Of course we can.
Okay. Amazing. And you can hear me. Great.
Okay. So what's the scenario?
Um, uh, I mean, the perception I'm holding based on the experience I'm having at the moment is that, my business really changed since 2020. And it feels like it's been like kind of a constant need to pivot. And while I've surrendered and opened and really shifted a lot of the energetics around like needing a certain size of clientele or having a certain number of offerings or all the things that sort of make you feel like you can self-organize, like, oh, this is enough. I feel like I'm going to use that metaphor, like the wall, like I have a ceiling, financially that I cannot seem to, and it didn't exist before. And maybe it did, or I didn't perceive it before, but I definitely experience it now. And I think a lot of what I do could be really benefited by just feeling more financially abundant, money coming in a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that a lot of me has been sort of reorganizing. And so it makes sense that the client base has shrunk as I've been sort of changing so much. But it becomes difficult to build new things or to feel the sense that I can do that and put money, like, have the money to do that, to kind of step into new territory. So it's money, but it's also sort of entangled with the amount of people that I attract.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Right. All right. So what we have when someone describes something, so there's the whole thing is a gestalt, right, around money. A gestalt just means like the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the reactions, the intentions, the beliefs, the whole lot, right? The whole shebang, right, is a schema, it's called, right? So it's a way, every time you think about money, it's like stepping into a reality, right? That is the kind of the rules of the game as they currently are in relationship to money. This is the idea, right? Now, in there was there's a few different things that were very metaphorically physical, right? Did everyone see when Tracy talked about a ceiling, where that ceiling was? Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. So the spot the NLP is. All right. And then stepping into new territory. Right. So stepping into the brain doesn't like to go somewhere where there's an abyss.
Yeah.
Where there's like nothing. Like, here's this dark place where something dangerous could be. Step in. Welcome. Right. This doesn't go so well. Right. So one way is to represent new things in that space, but there's another way to do it. So let's do a radically different kind of methodology just to see what happens if you're okay with it. Right.
Yes. And I just want to name that there's one other thing that I didn't mention that feels really relevant, but I can bring it in.
Yeah, please do.
And now,
Sure.
I think there's something going on with money and time, because I can acknowledge that I really value being in the emergent space, being in the exploring space, being in the playful space. And I have this assumption that these things at the moment don't like bring me money. And then I feel like I'm more attentive to this creational space that I feel doesn't actually produce money for me, rather than actually paying attention to money, making decisions and spending time strategizing about money. Like, I want to be in this playful,
Yeah.
what's coming through to, what, you know.
And again, for the NLPs, can you see how they're spatially sorted, right? So creativity's over here, making money's over here, right? In different places, right? There's not creatively making money, right? Okay.
Sometimes they go.
Sometimes, all right, right. But let's do it a completely different way, just for the hell of it, just to illustrate a point, which is that we do not have to get the map right. Right? These are not truths, these are maps, in order to get some kind of shift to happen. No idea if this will work, to be honest. So we'll just try it and see what happens. Right. Okay, so are you okay with saying some numbers, just annual revenue kind of numbers?
No.
Okay. So that's all right. All right. So what we'll do is just percentages, right? Right. So if you pick a number that you go, yeah, I can earn that, pretty, like, I could earn that in a year. Just know what that is mentally for you.
Yep.
Right. Right. So just imagine a ladder in front of you that's just like it goes up and down in front of you. Right. And low numbers are at the bottom and high numbers are at the top. Okay. Right. So place this, we'll call it 100% number. Yeah, there. Okay. So it's on the ladder. We're just going to flesh out where the other numbers are on this. Okay. On this ladder. So where is 50% of that number? And it may not be linear, just wherever it looks like it's on the ladder, just kind of write out a sticky and put it.
I mean, take that comfortable place and then half it, and then where is that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So here is 100% of the number, right? And if
My
I
comfort.
yeah,
Yeah.
what that you could comfortably earn in a year that you go, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about the number that is 50% of that, right? So work out what the number is in your head, the 50% of that number.
Mhm.
And then where is that on the ladder going? Because it's a lower number, so it'll be lower.
Mhm.
But where would you place that? Is it on the floor? Is it at your knees, at the belly?
Oh, okay. Yeah, an actual height.
Yeah.
Knees.
Knees, okay?
Knees, high shins.
Yeah, so it may not be linear, but where is 75% of that number?
Like in the middle of my thigh.
Okay, got it. So see how it's not linear, right? Because 100% was here.
Oh, I'm doing that in relationship to the screen.
Ah, okay. So where on your body is 100% on this ladder?
Kind of right at my solar plexus.
Got it. Perfect. Right. So that's where 100% is. 50% is at your knees. 75% is at your thighs. Is that right?
100% solar plexus, 75 about the middle of the thighs, and then yeah, 25 like right below the knee. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
25%.
What did I say?
You
I
said
say
25.
25%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
20. Yeah.
Okay. So we're just filling it out. So where's 150% of that number?
Here.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So 200%, like double that number. Okay. 3 times that number. Okay. 4 times that number. No, let's go jump to 5 times that number. Okay. And 10 times that number. Okay. All right. So we have all the numbers. Just imagine them on this ladder. Right. You might want to go and fill them in because I did percentages in order to retain kind of, but you want the actual numbers.
Oh. Okay. That's gonna take me a second.
Okay. So roughly.
Very roughly, I've got it.
Got it. Okay. Right. So here's what I want you to do. This represents, right, because there's no reason why you put them in all these places, right? Right. Or maybe there is, right? So you just grab hold of the ladder like this. Right. Got it? Right. And then don't try and force it, but we're going to move it downwards. So whatever these numbers are, you're just going to move the whole thing down. So in relationship to you, I'm going to move it up. So it'll just go jump. Right. Whatever feels natural. And let the numbers come with it.
Okay. I'm moving slowly because I'm tracking my body
Okay.
and just sensing excitement and resistance.
Yeah. Okay. Take your time.
Okay. Any amount down?
Yeah. I mean, we're making it up. This is a play, right? You can't get it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. And just leave it, stop it there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. All right. So clearly, where the old numbers were, right, are now in a new place, right? Because they all moved down, right? So what number is now at the solar plexus? Like as a percentage, you'll have to work it out because we're not doing.
Like the double.
Yeah, okay. So the double number is now at your solar plexus.
Mhm.
Right? And what's at eye level?
I don't know.
That's fine.
That part got like so muddy for me.
Yeah, well, interesting, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then where's
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. And where's the 100% now?
Kind of like below my pelvis.
Right.
Just
Okay.
below my pelvis.
All right. So breathe and relax your hands.
Oh.
All right. And here's the question. What happens when you think about earning that old 100% number compared to before?
It's sort of decentered. I don't know. It's actually hard to pay attention to it.
Okay. All right. What happens with, the double number is now at the solar plexus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just do this, just haven a couple of times first.
Oh.
Right. Right. And let everything else that needs to reorganize around this, allow it to reorganize, including family systems and assumptions and programming and conditioning. There we go. Okay. Right. So what happens now when you think about earning that double number compared to how it felt before? There's no right or wrong to this.
There's less charge. It's
Yeah.
calmer.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Here's if you and then just allow all of the systems, and I'll explain what's going on, right, with this, right? Which is that if you think about what charge is, right, when we start to come up against the limits of our homeostasis, like what we feel is comfortable, right, charge starts to increase and goes, whoa, stop, slow down. Like, don't put out that extra offer. Don't go and reach out to this person. Don't do this. Don't do that. Right. And as the charge drops more and more, the the new number, we're more available to do those behaviors when we're more neutral. Got it? Now, you did something that almost everyone does. It's really interesting. Is we put the current number where our sense of self is. Right. So somebody who where they're in their head, they put it up here. Other people are in their belly, they put it here. Solar plexus is perfect, sense of self, right? And so we start to act consistent with the what you're probably experiencing. And there's still some shifting and rearranging kind of going on. But I did this with someone who was earning like a couple 100,000 a year. And we did this in April, and the following January, we never did anything other than this. And I said, "How did it go last year?" Because funny enough, actually, we did our books and just recently, and it was almost exactly 400K, right? That we act consistently in relationship to our homeostasis. So other people will do this using self-image, self-concept, right? Who do you have to be, right? But what's weird about this is the reason I did it first rather than explain it first is that thing about less charge. Many people say it either feels more normal or it feels easier because people get overwhelmed with things over their head. The other thing consistently people say is the number that they're looking for, right, is just quote unquote out of reach. It's literally physically just at the edge of what they can reach. And now it's more within reach. Right. Right. So tune into this whole money thing right now. Notice how we haven't gone psychologically, like all the reasons and the explanation of things. But let's let this energy shift into all of the sense making now, right? And how that can change you behaviorally and options and choices. And just check to see if there's what comes up in terms of disturbance or resistance, and breathe through that because some of it will drop away by itself. All right. I.e., what happens when you're consistent with the double number, right? How do you act in the world? How do you behave in the world? And then we can get into tactics and strategy.
So are you asking me for to report?
Yeah, so anything that shows up, just how does your sense of self shift if you're doing the actions in the world in order to make double the income, have it come in? Because I mean, literally what we did is we put it where the other one where you went, yeah, I can reasonably do that pretty easily, straightforwardly. Right? It's a bit of a cheat.
I can sense just a reorganizing, and so I've got like certain gestures and movements I'm seeing and certain thoughts that are coming up, where I'm like, I'm just kind of
great.
I don't want to.
Let them continue. Don't that's the perfect report that you just made.
Yeah.
Right? Because what it shows is we can do large scale schema reorganization. The reason you can do it, by the way, is because of all this embodiment practice and all the stuff you've done in your physicality, that your system doesn't contract around large scale holistic reorganization. Right. So why not use this skill, this talent that you've built, cultivated over like decades, probably, right? for your psychological reorganizing rather than having to do it through the head. So let this settle.
Just the one thing that's sort of a through line is just, again, that thing you worked with me a couple months ago. There's that fear response in my heart space that comes up that feels a little discordant with the way that everything's going like this. And then this is sort of like active. So just experiencing that, but everything else moving.
Even better, right? Because what we're doing then, if you think about, do you remember, like, I don't know if you saw these Bob Ross in the 1970s, he was a painter, right? And he'd just put in the broad strokes to begin with, like the large scale things, and before you knew it, and then he'd fill in the details. This is like first order, the big change, and then now you can be more nuanced and go, there's a little bit still going on in the heart, a fear response. So if you just take your fingers together like this, you can do it very gently, just 3 fingers like that. And then even just put it in front of your heart might be enough. And you're just looking for that parasympathetic, that breath, the freeing breath. Right. Right. And in brain spotting, David Grann's system, you hold your attention there and your brain just works through all the examples, the images, the thoughts, feelings, clearing, clearing, clearing. So you don't have to do anything other than just hang out.
I hold a wondering about maybe even the map I'm laying on to this whole sensation landscape, and that, the new thought is like, could it potentially just be energy coming in, and that makes me uncomfortable?
Yes, it could.
Yeah,
that's the other thing you said, which is about money coming in, right? So all of these metaphors of, like, it doesn't matter how wonderful money is, I don't want to be invaded. This is not an idea, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess I have a wondering about capacity.
Good. Stay there. Put your hand here.
Wait, it doesn't matter which one.
Doesn't matter which one. Right. One on the heart. Because capacity is a physical metaphor. If this was true, then someone couldn't earn, 1,000,000 times more than someone else, or a rock star couldn't be in front of 80,000 people and flow the energy of 80,000 times one person. It doesn't work like that, right? That is a physical description. So just hold this for a second and let your system work out that capacity is about neutrality, not about effort. Right? The more neutral and empty you are, that's why on David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, he goes, every time you chunk up one, you can handle 10 times as much. Because if you're completely kind of neutral, then take it to an extreme, the Jesus thing, in the world, but not of it. There's a part of you that's never affected by anything ever, Buddha nature, right? So let's just update the parts of you that are doing a kind of physical metaphor, like twice as many people equals twice as much work, or twice as many seminars equals twice as much effort, and breathe through that. Because the more you're in flow, you can actually do more while doing less. Just let yourself soften. Yeah, here we go. The bulk of the change was in that first, like the 80-20 was in that first few moments when you went.
What was that?
I think the bulk of the change that you just went through was in the first few moments when you went.
Yeah, it's that there was a lot happening in that moment with lots of parts and all that stuff.
Yeah, just let them just do whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
It's much quicker if we just go with awareness rather than trying to run it through mentally or cognitively.
I'm not.
Yeah, great. It's a superpower, to be able to do that. To not have to understand everything.
That's all systemic work for me. It's been my learning.
Very cool. And then while this is happening, attend to just spaciousness, because just adding the idea of space will probably help with things, just less intensity running through.
You gave me that piece last time, and that was actually, it was a huge thing that's still unfolding, like the idea of space around things. Super helpful.
Nice. And these kinds of system changes, once it's on its way tonight as you sleep and dream, the next 2 or 3 days, right? Doesn't all have to happen in one go.
Can you speak to anything about, and maybe this is again something that needs adjusting, but like that feeling a new potential, and then this feeling that maybe you have to hold it, which I can hear like how that's not, so I feel a sense of emptiness, spaciousness, new, like that flavor of new potential. And then there's a part of me that like gets a little
Yeah.
gravity.
Yeah. So the suggestion is this: don't try and hold it, because the holding it creates a polarity. Right? I want this and I don't want this one. Right? The idea is just keep doing the new thing and let the other stuff come up. Don't find it. Let it come through and process. Right? Because then we arrive in this new ontology, this new way of being, without having to hold it. Right?
And is that about trusting?
It sort of is. I'll say it like this. Let's say you want let's say these are metaphors, right? Let's say you want to upgrade from here to here, right? I don't know what this means, but right. So what happens though is that suddenly a part of your system kind of goes like this, right?
Yeah.
And it integrates into everything else. And when it balances, it just balances to here. So it moves up a little bit, right? So we're not trying to hold this, right? So then you go and you expose yourself to another big kind of change, and you let it all integrate, right? Then what that means is when you arrive at this place, you're integrated at that level, rather than just a part of you got there, like the quick grab. Everyone these days wants the quick grab of the new ontology, whereas let all the younger aspects of self and everything come up, and then just keep doing the practice. So years ago, I used to teach public speaking, and people were like, how do I perform, right? What you want though in public speaking is that when you don't perform, you're just resting, right? So you can respond to the moment rather than having to rush into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and cover up. Oh shit, if I stop, I'm going to get taken over by my shame or humiliation or the rest of it. So you actually do a bit and then let whatever else is there to process and come up, and allow it. You can haven, right? And then you get this integration across all states of consciousness.
That makes a lot of sense. This usually leads to like stuff in the outer world, almost like a crash, or like,
Yes.
and I always really fought with that experience of expansion, and then this violent.
And here's why. Think about reality creation, reality manifestation. So you get this quick win. Your energy's up here, right? So now you want to hold this and stay here, right? The system wants to balance. What does it do? The outside world manifests so that this gets recreated, right? Whereas if you're willing to let this come up, it can dissolve in the subtle and not have to come through in the physical.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Right. Everyone take a breath. Put your feet on the ground. And then apply that to self. So allow those shifts and changes that you experience consciously, but tune into, imagine human beings can learn from each other at an energy level, like an informational level across time and space, and go, anything I saw today that is useful in my system, copy paste. Don't steal. Copy paste. Okay. And go, how would that apply? You can ask the question, how would that apply in my life? where are those learnings? Because then what we're doing here is not just theory, it's an embodied experience of a new reference experience, a new thing that you experience today. That's what forms the basis of new learning, rather than theory and then I have to go and practice it. Right. That's why we're emphasizing do change here first, and you don't need to understand it immediately, but just notice over the next 2 or 3 days how you might think differently, feel differently, experience the world differently. New thoughts might come, new behaviors, new actions. Right? And then you know that a real change has happened, like across your whole system, because you're not having to make it happen. It just happens. So, all right. And with that in mind, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Welcome to our new people. Anything else? Otherwise, we will do a closing.
I just want to say that was also helpful, particularly that last part with Tracy. I was just really tracking with her in terms of it was helpful, that whole money exercise, but what you said at the last part, just in terms of where you want to stay in that expanded level, and then and just the way you said the reorganization can happen at the subtle level. So you, wow. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, this is written about. So this is in, yes, it will be. And then I'll get the recordings up. This is written about in Tozan's Zen master from 500 AD. I can't remember when he was. And he had Tozan's 5 ranks. And the first rank was my enlightenment, like I'm enlightened, or I have this awakening, right? And then you go and try and tell everyone about it. The next step is called great doubt, great death, when you kind of go, hang on a minute, everyone else is also my perceptions of this reality, right? So you start to awaken to that realization. And then the great death is you go, I can't, these are all just perceptions, right? I'm not identified with any of these things. So then you get to this third stage called great enlightenment, which is essentially it's the absolute. So in Zen masters will find this place and they think they're manifesting reality source continuously, right? And the problem is they think they can do no wrong. And then this is when they all the corruption and they sleep with their students and all the rest happens. Because in the moment, in their experience, it feels like they're just sourcing in every moment. There's no inhibition, there's no self, there's no person, there's just spontaneous arising and response in the world. So in the fourth stage in Tozan's 5 ranks, it's called the fall from grace, which is because now in that state where they perceive themselves as the absolute, anything that has been left behind, any shadow hasn't been dealt with. It's like they're going off a cliff. You know, remember Wile E. Coyote, which was this cartoon? The guy would run off the cliff and not realize he'd run off a cliff and then he would fall. So the fourth stage is called fall from grace, which is where you come back to earth, right? So not in Mahamudra, in Vajrayana, no mud, no lotus, right? So this integration of the sacred and the profane and all polarities. And the fifth stage is the path of human being, or the integrated self, right? Where everything is kind of where it started, but it's different. I don't know what to say about it. But I mean, my experience now, and I can't claim I can had some experience in all these things, is you just feel more and more like yourself. You don't feel particularly spiritual. You don't feel particularly this, particularly that. But you're like, I'm me, and what you see is what you get, basically. That's kind of the idea, right? And that things shift. Things don't stick around. So if something bad happens, there's no lag. The lag reduces so that, oh, well, I'm glad that's over. And 10 minutes later, you feel okay again. Right? So the actual delay in feeling bad kind of goes away. So, and this is also in Buddhism. It's called the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss body. So just before a full enlightenment in that system, they say you go into the realm of the gods and you can only stay there a certain amount of time and then you come out of that state. Now, the reason for all of this is attachment, being attached to, I want to be in a good state, I don't want to be in a bad state. The minute you have that preference, something wants to balance, right? So you're letting go of not minding whether you're in a good state or a bad state. This is peace. This is freedom. This is contentment, right? I actually don't mind if I'm in a good state or a bad state. right? So I'm not adding loops to it. I feel bad. Now I feel bad about feeling bad. Now I feel bad about feeling bad about feeling bad, right? So, and it is weird when you're living from your own energy, even it's like sadness can feel like a poetic kind of poignant sadness. Anger actually feels like strength, like as long as you don't go and harm people, right? But actually, if you get annoyed and it feels, how many people have like enjoyed being annoyed with someone, right? Right. So actually, no state is actually bad. And so this emotional fluidity that we're cultivating allows like the psyche to basically unwind itself, process itself. And what the end result is you end up just more and more present. And also the critical one is not desiring to be at some end state, right? Like this is good enough. For me, I'm still not as stable or coherent as other people I meet, but it's pretty good, right? And it's definitely good, amazing compared where I started, which was a mess, right? So I'm very happy if I never get any further than where I am today, then this is great, right? It's good enough, right? Because that's its own trap as well, trying to chase some future, like where you're going to be perfect somehow. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your attention, your engagement. And just put your feet on the ground and we'll just do a little integration. So for a couple of hours, we've been in a field of change and hopefully not remedial and fixing, but exploration, interest, fascination about what it means to be human. This creativity and enjoying the fact that we can learn things about our nervous system and how we change that hopefully is fun, interesting, elegant, and as I said at the beginning, therapeutic results can happen. Right. So with that in mind, enjoy this looseness, this creativity in your nervous system, see how it unfolds and over the next 24, 48, 72 hours, the rest of your life. And I will see you guys again. There'll be another one of these every about 2 a month, give or take. And I've got a couple of programs coming up. So if you're interested in those, I will just leave rather than tell you about them. I'll just leave the details here. So send me an email if you want to speak about them. I will give you the details in the chat. So one is on recursive self-evolution. There we go. And the other one is a monthly program. The next month hasn't started yet, but there's a topic every month. There we go. That's last month. And here's the month. This program's been going for 3 years now. New topic every month. There's all the topics. So feel free to copy those out of the chat. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for coming. Bye for now. Take care.